Ivan Pavlenko, From Family to Family, Chapter 3, Part 7.2, To Get High Education, read by Natalia Buzova. In the fall of 1954, I entered the 10th grade of the Luka Secondary School for Workers and Peasants Youth. Now, every day in the evening, I walked 5 kilometers to school and returned home at midnight. Several other boys went to the 9th and 10th grades with me. I graduated from school with a gold medal and immediately rushed to enroll in the corresponding department of the Kharkiv Institute of Culture. But I was late. The documents were no longer accepted. It was decided to wait a year. Suddenly, I received a letter from the Nizhyn Pedagogical Institute with the following contents. Dear Ivan Ivanovich Pavlenko, the rector of the Nizhyn Pedagogical Institute is writing to you. I know that you have successfully graduated from high school and I want you to be a student of our institute. Come and contact me directly. Best regards, signature, M.I. Pavlenko. What kind of miracle was it? To say that this was some kind of raffle, but a Nizhyn stamp was on the envelope. Shura and I thought and wondered what it was, but we couldn't figure it out. But one thing was clear, I couldn't possibly study full-time. Wife, children, household, what kind of full-time could it be? I left that letter unanswered. I put it on the table and started to forget. But somewhere in the middle of August, when admissions to universities had already ended, a young girl entered the yard. She introduced herself. I'm from the neighboring village of Yiskivsy, a student of the Nizhyn Pedagogical Institute. The rector of the institute sent me for you and told me not to come without you. Such a story. It turned out that the institute had a large student choir. The rector himself took care of it. He sent his teachers to schools who were looking for 10th graders with local vocal talents. And when teachers, extramural students came to the session, he asked them to find school graduates with good voices. It was then that my history teacher was taking exams in the correspondence department. She said, we have one tenor voice like Lemeshev. He graduated from school with a gold medal. But family, there is a wife, children, that's why there probably won't be permanent study. We entered the house, sat down at the table and began to consult. We talked like this and that, nothing worked. Then Dusia, that was the name of the student, offered to study for a year and then, if it was difficult, to transfer to the correspondence department. It was a solution that Shura agreed to. On the next day, Dusia and I were already at the station. We arrived at the institute, went up to the second floor where the rector's office was, and his reception room was full of people, both dads and moms with their children. Dusia squeezed her way to the secretary and whispered something in her ear. She went into the office, and a minute later, she invited me there too. I was walking and heard these gruntled whispers behind me that I was jumping the queue. I came in, said hello. A stout man in his 50s wearing glasses with a high forehead with stiffness and bald spots was sitting at the table. Is that you, Ivan Ivanovich Pavlenko? I answered. Did you receive a letter from the rector of the institute? Got it, I said. Why didn't you answer back? I felt uneasy and began to wriggle out. I didn't think of entering the institute due to family circumstances. That's why I didn't bother you with unnecessary writing. Yeah, you thought that you didn't need the rector. That's why you didn't answer him, he concluded ironically, with a slight smile. It was already a little embarrassing. I began to apologize. I'm sorry, I didn't act tactfully. Okay, give me your documents. He looked at them, gold certificate, participant in the war. At that time, they were accepted without any competition. He took a large colored pencil in his hands and asked, which faculty will you enroll in? Philology, I answered. He began to campaign for physics. There was a shortage, and philologists had already been recruited completely. But I didn't give up. And in the end, I said, it's embarrassing for me to tell you, but I'm fond of poetry and I write poems. I see. He raised his eyes at me in surprise. Well, then join philology and imposed a resolution. After that, he asked about my vocal data. I answered that I had been singing since childhood. I knew many songs, but I didn't understand the notes. I just felt the vocal parts on hearing. In parting, he told me to go to the commandant and settle in a dormitory. And the next day, he would find me and take me to the director of the choir to check my voice. On the next day, I already participated in the preparation of classrooms for classes. I carried and arranged tables, benches, and chairs. Suddenly, the secretary came and called me to the rector. When I entered his office, he took me to the institute club. The choir director, Panarin, was already waiting there by the piano. He began to test my vocal capabilities. At first, I could by ear and played individual notes with my voice sounds, and then the whole scale. He lifted me higher and higher, after which he turned to the rector and said, "Not bad." What meaning was put into this "not bad" I understood only later, when the choir began to learn a wreath of Ukrainian songs arranged by Davidovsky, which included Bandura, which I had to sing. It was written for a tenor with a high voice, and I coped with it. Now about the Institute Choir. It had 80 singers, 20 people in each part, basses, tenors, altos, and sopranos. It was directed by Panarin, former choir master of the Chernigiv Drama Theater. He was Russian by nationality. That's probably why we performed mostly Russian songs. Among them were the old classic ones, Evening Bell, The Bell Rings in Unison, Cold Waves Splash, as well as modern ones, Song About Lenin, Russia is My Motherland, Fly Pigeons, Book and World, Hymn of Democratic Youth. Two Ukrainian ones remain in my memory, Risa by Davidovsky and Song About the Motherland by Filipenko. Our actor himself had graduated from the conservatory in his time and therefore loved any art, especially vocal art. Therefore, he often came to choir rehearsals and sometimes he brought high-ranking officials. After the second secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Ukraine, Skaba, once listened to us, the choir was invited to Kiev, where we performed at the Party of Polish-Soviet Friendship. And in general, most often we had to perform on various holidays and jubilees dates in the city's House of Culture, as well as at district and regional party conferences and in my institute club in front of teachers and students. I sang Bandura in the choir. I also performed at concerts with the song Black Eyebrows, Brown Eyes, as well as in a duet with Ivan Rohovy. He had a good baritone. We performed songs Birch, lyrics by Kryzhanivsky, music by Kozak, and Why Run Away, lyrics by Voronko, music by Chameau. I woke completely upset. The last one was especially popular. It was rare because the author of the text was an ordinary employee of the Nizhyn city newspaper, and the music was composed by an amateur composer, Rizhenko. I am quoting the text, unfortunately without music. I woke completely upset at dawn in a quiet garden. I'm not looking for someone better than you, and I will probably never find. Poplar leaves quietly whispers. The nightingale has not been heard for a long time. I will not meet you at this time, but I will feel everything in my heart. I will not tell you why the garden blooms in the spring. I won't get the stars from the sky either, but my love is so passionate, and I will finally say everything I have at dawn in a quiet garden. I'm not looking for someone better than you, and I will never find again. I also read Mykola Brown's poem, There Is Such a Party, several times from the stage and had great success. For my active participation in amateur artistic activities, the Nizhyn City Komsomol awarded me a diploma, and the rector of the Pedagogical Institute announced his thanks in his order. The institute also had its own amateur theater. The artistic director, which was an English teacher, a former actor of the Odessa Theater. He invited me to play the role of Peter in the play Natalka Poltavka, and not because there wasn't someone better. There was a song, The Sun is Low, with a too high ending, which no one could sing. This play was performed on the stage of the Institute Club in the city culture house and in the village of Vertivka at the invitation of the heads of the local collective fund. Individual episodes of the performance were photographed and repeatedly displayed on the stands, artistic amateur activity of the Institute, especially before the days of meetings with graduates. On one of them, in the center, there was a large photo of me, in which I, in the role of Peter, performed the song The Sun is Low. I also have this photo.